It's over. We need to find out what our agenda is. What are the gods pulling up to the stage? What about your damn ship? That's what I'm trying to say. We need to find out what our agenda is. We are there.
In museums throughout the Middle East and the world that have Egyptian artifacts in them, they would call this artifact from ancient Egypt a ritual object. Unfortunately, a ritual object is simply what modern Western museum curators call any object that they're given from ancient Egypt that they do not understand the purpose of. Actually, what this is a geometric emitter of energy, according to the actual shape of this object, with this hemispherical cap at the top and these zigzag lines that modify the quality of energy. This is actually used as a pendulum in ancient Egypt. And from the base of this pendulum would be emitted a penetrating carrier wave of energy. And we're going to be talking more about these principles. But it's important to understand that this exact form of so-called ritual object, this pendulum from ancient Egypt, there are artifacts of this kind at least 5,000 years old, perhaps older, and literally hundreds of these have been found and are in museums around the world. So we know that many people were trained in this science in ancient Egypt and used these things on a regular basis. And today in the Egyptian work in biogeometry, we use these types of tools as well. Now in modern times, the term that is used primarily in Europe for this type of energy work is radiesthesia. Radiesthesia is the science of being able to detect subtle radiations or subtle energies that are primarily non-electromagnetic in nature and cannot be detected by most scientific equipment. However, virtually every spiritual tradition around the world understands the existence of these subtle energies. In the East, they might call it chi or ki or prana. It has different names in different places around the world. But these vital energies, although they cannot be detected by modern electromagnetic scientific equipment, nonetheless exist and have a powerful effect on all living beings. So radiesthesia is the term that we're going to be using, connected both to modern European work and to the ancient Egyptian science of energy. So again, we see the illustration of this particular pendulum from ancient Egypt, which is known as the Wadj. If we put it in English, it would be W-A-D-J. But as Arthur C. Clarke once said, magic is simply a term that we give to a sufficiently advanced form of technology that we do not understand. So its effects seem to us to be magic. But when we understand this Egyptian science of energy, things that appear to be magic can now be understood as a type of spiritual science. Now this is related to an important part of the Egyptian science of energy. When they use a pendulum or they use a staff, something of that kind, they will use the pendulum in this Egyptian body of work quite differently than a pendulum is often used in most European or North American circles of dowsing. Now one of the very brilliant things that they did is they found ways to be able to detect the entire spectrum of living energies that make up our world. And without going into all the details, I will simply tell you that they divided that full spectrum of living energies into 12 different energy qualities. And they were able to find how these energy qualities propagate on different surfaces, everything from the surface of the Earth to a two-dimensional circle and many other shapes as well. But they had the capacity then to directly detect all 12 energies. And with these 12 energies, there is both a beneficial aspect and a detrimental aspect to all 12 energy bands. Here's a couple of illustrations from the French text. They could then take a look at something like a pyramid on a particular part of the planet and see how the 12 energies propagated in multiple spectrums around that object at that particular place on the planet. These 12 energies occurred in a particular spectrum, and the way that this had in fact been intentionally created by the ancient Egyptians to create specific energetic effects. This led to the French discovery of what we can refer to as a fixed polarity geometrical emitter. Now all that means is that particular shapes were found by the French to have an emission of particular energy qualities that were very powerful. and that emission of energy was fixed in place. It did not change over time. And so two of the very important forms that they found were the form of a hemisphere or a dome, simply a sphere cut in half to be a hemisphere or a dome, or the form of a pyramid. In fact, the two are energetically identical. A dome and a pyramid have the same energetic qualities. This particular energy quality they found could penetrate thicknesses of lead that could not be penetrated by X-rays. They then found that the form of the dome or the pyramid emanated from their base, this very powerful carrier wave of energy. And in fact, later on it was identified by other researchers that this is in fact a spiritual carrier wave. The thing I want you to take away right now is simply the way the French discovered and could directly detect that certain shapes used by the Egyptians and other cultures will create specific powerful qualities of energy. And that in fact some of these qualities of energy can be used as a carrier wave to send energy and information from one place to another place. So that when we look at the form of the Great Pyramid, what we find is that the king's chamber, the place of initiation in the Great Pyramid where the sarcophagus was, which according to popular tradition was the place where the initiate would lie and go through a 3 or a 3.5 day death-like sleep where their spirit traveled through the higher worlds and then returned, where even the form of the Ankh itself, as we mentioned before, the actual shape of the Ankh creates specific qualities of energy at various positions on the form according to the way it is shaped. So for instance, the spiritual carrier wave actually comes out of the base of the Ankh. The energy emission can be modified by attaching other forms to the base. But you can find in the Egyptian mysteries the proving that they knew this energy once you're aware of it. In other words, there is an energy science that is encoded in the knowledge in the Egyptian mythology. And we use this particular energy form today in biogeometry as a way to emanate the BG3 from its base. So this is to illustrate for you this concept that in the Egyptian mysteries they knew how to create the BG3 and work with these energies very precisely.
Well, with all the information that just occurred within the last hour or two, the Ankh, I think personally, encompassed all the information that your scholars or scientists has been presenting to the listeners and the callers. When we're using the Ankh, and we use the Ankh through our everyday lives, the energy that flows through the Ankh, it comes through the body. And once it comes through the body, it actually penetrates the skin. And once it penetrates the skin, it turns on the organs. And within that process, we are assimilating information within our internal electrical system. And once we do this process day in and day out, this particular application will exemplify itself in our everyday life. See, the whole scenario here is what the scholars are saying, application.
Right.
Now, what the flow and the energy, what I had downloaded today, they wanted me to present to you guys in regards to the movie Avatar. The Avatar, the whole concept in the movie Avatar was based on energy. And for those of you listeners who have watched the movie, look at the main colors within that whole entire movie from front to end. The colors were purple and blue. What do those two colors represent? They represent the pineal and the pituitary gland. The whole concept here was when those avatars were plugging into the system. Basically, that is a symbolic metaphor to your pineal gland. Every time the avatar will plug into something, he was actually plugging into the universe. The Ankh was a mediator as a plug to the universe. The Ankh works exactly the same way as the avatar in the movie Avatar. When you speak of the movie Avatar, you're actually talking about you, the blue, black people. The movie is based on you. The whole concept in the whole movie, my dear brothers and sisters, is electromagnetism. When they call on their specific God, they're talking about the electromagnetic invisible energy. The whole process is for us to get in tune with one another, to activate that head chakra, and to practice electromagnetism. Once we learn this concept collectively on a world level, we can communicate from one side of the earth through an organic email, and that's telepathic communication based on our eternal electric system.
Companies, the 2012 event is rising, and it's time now to really just kind of, one, appreciate the immensity, the enormity of the transformation that is being that is unfolding on the planet right now, and to participate in it. And transfigured or metamorphosed, changed his form from a human body into a being or a body of light. Perfected ones. And what that does, that term does, is it links us to the Tibetan tradition they called the Great Perfection, when the Lama would spin the energy of his body, accelerate the vibration of his body, and spin it into a vortex of light that they call the rainbow body or body of light, which would enable them to open wormholes and travel throughout the cosmos. We went to Sirius or the Pleiades. You can make cases for all of those locations. Others are alive and biological and have performed this ascension process or light body effect and are able to jump dimensions. And when we can see them in this dimension, they look like these pulsing light-like orbs, targets for us for meditation. And when we combine the light body effect with Revelation 2012, the information in there, it says, okay, now is the time to get busy. Now is the time to really start focusing our hearts and minds on our highest aspects.
Our eternal electric system.
I think this is the last hoorah go around for everybody. I think that this is it. We are the coming of the Christ. You see what I'm saying? So I think this is it. This is the 2012 moment, and we are right on it.